How much is that?
And welcome to the Podcast Editors Mastermind, this show about the business of podcast editing. I'm your host tonight, Carrie Caulfield-Eric. You can learn more about me at carrie.land, L-A-N-D. I'm joined by Brian Ensminger of Top Tier Audio, and not able to join us tonight, Daniel Abendroth from Roth Media and Jennifer Longworth of Bourbon Barrel Podcasting. We are excited to welcome tonight Bethany Hawkins, founder of the podcast service agency Crackers in Soup. You can find her at crackersinsoup.com. She also has a wonderful podcast called Chatting Over Chowder, which you should definitely check out.
Thank you for having me. And, it's hella late. It's 9 p.m. I've usually been in bed for a good hour because I'm super old. So however you want to say my name, it's fine.
I'm tripping over because it's 9 o'clock.
Because it's 9 o'clock. I literally had to take a nap to appear at this meeting. I'm in that stage of my life.
I know Steve said something about a drinking game, but I think it's a little bit early for us to start that. So not yet.
Can our drinking game be coffee?
Yeah, totally.
We'll pick a day and have a drunk podcast editing discussion. I don't know.
You might.
I might.
That could be fire. Fire.
So we are talking about the future of the podcast editing industry. Lots of things have been happening. The podcast landscape is shifting. Podcasting is becoming more mainstream. And I just thought it was a good time to take a minute and be like, hey, what do you see? What's going on? What do you think? And kind of open up the conversation. And Steve says we can't play the drinking game because we should not influence the outcome. So, yeah, this show would be incoherent if I were drinking, Steve. It doesn't take much. But we wanted to talk about what is going on in our industry, particularly. We don't have a ton of these conversations out loud in public. I mean, we do privately and we have our own little things, but so I thought it would be great to start a conversation with y'all. And one of the reasons I had Bethany on here is because she is so insightful and she just drops podcast editing wisdom bombs so I just knew I had to have her on for this topic. And thank you, Bethany, for saying yes. But before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about what you do specifically, Bethany?
Sure. Firstly, let me say, hello, Steve. Hello, Sandra. Steve, you're not the boss of me. I do what I want. Let the drinking games commence. Secondly, I am Bethany Hawkins. I am the CEO and founder of Crackers in Soup. Crackers in Soup is a podcast production and coaching company, and we have worked on over 80 podcasts. We are winning an award-nominated production company, which is just wild to me. Our business started in 2019, and since then, we have hit the ground running. It is really interesting to see the changes of the podcasting industry in that short amount of time. I feel like if you started in podcasting, in any aspect in podcasting, whether it was production or management or copy or just creating a podcast before COVID, it's like you're a dinosaur.
Hey.
But it's because there have been so many changes since COVID happened. It's wild. The courses that I took and the information that I learned in early 2019 to create this business, a lot of it has become obsolete now because of AI, because of the technological advances. And I just think that it is so interesting to watch the progression as somebody who started before the AI explosion in podcasting.
So I wanted to ask y'all, what specifically have you seen recently as kind of an emerging trend? How about you, Bethany?
So, with the explosion of YouTube creating podcasts,
Wait, did you just say YouTube creating podcasts?
YouTube creating podcasts.
I'm sorry, that's fake news.
Now that YouTube is saying we're a podcast hosting station, I see a lot of what I consider soft editing. And if people are going to be using the audio from editing, they're now at a point where they are not taking the time to do all of the audio enhancements that your listener really deserves. So taking out those long pauses, taking out the incessant filler words, normalizing the audio so that you're not blasting their ears out. Or even the little things that Steve actually often talks about, like making sure that your microphone is working, making sure that you have on plug-in headphones. They're not taking the time and opportunity to do things like that. They're just making sure that their surrounding is pretty because it's going to be loaded up on video. And then they're not understanding why they're not getting the downloads from the audio because you're not doing your due diligence when it comes to the audio. So I like to consider it soft editing. I'm not going to use the lazy word. But I feel like it's a disservice if you are going to be calling yourself a podcaster and not clean up the audio when you're uploading it and it's going through the distribution like Apple and Spotify and such. So that's a trend that I'm seeing, and it may give me hives. I'm just saying.
So there's a disconnect for me here that I don't just understand why people do this, because there's still audio on video. I'm not just like looking at you. I don't just want to stare at you. I'm watching, for the entire experience. So why do you think that they don't consider that at all? Like, what am I missing that makes people not care?
I think what's happening now is everything is short stints of information. So they want it quick and they want it visual, but they want to call it a podcast. So when I started, I was taught if it's not an RSS feed and uploaded into a podcast hosting station, it is not a podcast. And I'm probably going to die on that hill. And I like that the video is coming out. I think that helps with engagement because you really get an opportunity to see the people's facial expression, and it gives it a little bit more nuance than just listening to the audio. But if I am listening to a podcast, I am listening to it as an audio. So please make your audio good, if not great.
I will take comfortable.
I get moved all around. So if there's somebody who's consistently having noises in the background, like a dog barking or like a garbage truck happening, and that's not taken out, I'm immediately distracted by that. And I've missed a good 5 minutes of what you were talking about.
This is just my perspective. I think there's really two things going on. One, I think we've gotten the consistent message that audiences don't care. And so if you come from the world of lean manufacturing or value-based pricing or something like that, a thing that you do that somebody won't pay for is waste. So why would I waste my time if my audience, as somebody told me, doesn't care? And I think alongside that, there's maybe a little bit of a lack of pride that says, well, if it's good enough for my audience, then I shouldn't care. It doesn't represent me. But in my view, and I could be wrong, the best channels on YouTube are edited.
Oh, yeah.
The most popular channels on YouTube, even if they're blathering idiots, are edited and they are strategic and they are done well. The best podcasts are done well. If we want to live in a world where Wayne's World, where two guys living in a basement make a stupid show with really low production quality, we're going to look back 5 years from now and say, oh, it's just the big money that came into podcasting that ruined everything. No, it's that you didn't care enough about your craft to defend your ability to do something well. This isn't about defending my turf. This is about saying, I care enough to make something that I'm proud of, that the people that listen to will enjoy and be pleased by. And I care enough to take out all the garbage before I invite people into my house and ask them to sit down for an hour with me.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that's a good point. Now, I'm just thinking about the irony as I'm sitting here, like I forgot to turn the air conditioner off and my dad is calling on the intercom. So,
but that won't be in the final.
I don't know. That Alejandro's good though. So, no, but I have noticed. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. I love it. And I love it for two reasons. I love it because there are some really brilliant content creators on there and great, interesting content. But also because you can see the rise of somebody who does take the time to create good content. You can literally like watch them grow day by day. And it is just the most kind of amazing thing. And I've just been dissecting kind of what are they doing that's working and what's not working, like why are some like getting stuck and why are others taking off. And I really think it comes down to kind of the quality, the consistency, and the content, right? I don't feel like that's really heavily taught. Consistency, maybe content, but like quality is the really hard part, I think. Jesse McCune says, the longer the content is, the more important quality becomes. Absolutely. People can tolerate poor audio for a couple minutes on a reel, but not much about a 30-minute piece of content.
Yeah.
Unless you are exceptional, like a phenomena. Is there anything we can do about it? Like, is it ever going to change? Are we going to have to adapt to it? Because, the reality is people's perception is people's perception. A lot of the market isn't interested in quality. Like, what do you do about that?
The market won't endure forever, right? The market will not abide this forever because the ones that do care will rise to the top and the ones that don't will say, well, podcasting doesn't work, and they'll get mad and they'll throw down their ball and bat and go home.
But the crazy thing is, if you're good at podcasting, you make the money. I mean, just period.
Yeah.
Like you can monetize yourself.
But I think that this is when it's really important for people who are creating courses or people who are teaching either podcast management or production or audio engineering to emphasize the importance of having great audio. So even if you are not editing the video, you are doing all of the things to set yourself up for success when you extract that audio from that video. And also being able to explain to your potential client or your potential audience why you are taking the time to work in a DAW and not just throw it into some AI and cross your fingers and hope that they do all of the things that it usually would take you hours to do. So I think the onus is put on the people in the industry that are paying their mortgage with creating this content on behalf of the people that are retaining them.
Part of me also says, in the past, there's been a culture of gatekeeping, not so much within podcasting, but in other media, right? And so for a long time, the message of podcasting was just get started, figure it out on the way, and keep getting better. The problem is we've forgotten about the continuous improvement part as a broader community. It's speaking in broad strokes, right?
Well, did podcasting ever consider what its adulthood would look like?
Probably not, because it's only 20 years old right now. So podcasting can't even rent a car. Right? Can't even rent a car. So, I mean, it's an adult, but is it really an adult? I remember when I was 20.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust me with anything.
I can't believe I was allowed to vote, honestly.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about podcasting is that you don't have to be old enough to vote to have one, right? In fact, if you can get a parent to sign off for you, you don't even have to be 13 to have one, unlike getting a YouTube channel or something like that. I mean, of course, there are terms of service and stuff, but it is the place where you can do essentially whatever you want so long as it's legal, right? You don't get shut down for that reason. But that doesn't mean you should. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't continue to try to improve. I know of a couple shows that are quite unedited, and one or two of them are pretty popular. The thing is, the people that are hosting those shows have been doing it since before podcasting was a thing, and they're good. They were good before they started, and they've only gotten better. And they've built their entire process to take them live to drive so that all they have to do is export the file. I'm not that good. Me not edited is, well, this.
Yeah. It is a train wreck. Y'all know.
But I think that also goes back to learning to listen to your content and learning to listen to what you've put out and learning from that experience of listening as a person who hasn't heard this content before and saying, oh, this is where I can make changes. This was super dope. I love this. Let's keep that in. When I talk to my clients, I let them know the first season is usually 12 episodes. We usually do the first season for 12 episodes. That season is for learning.
I like
if
that.
you are not going back and listening to your episodes as soon as they are published, not only are you helping your download numbers, but you should be taking just mental note. I say like too much. I pause significantly. I'm not taking an opportunity to think about what I'm going to say before I verbalize it. Those little nuances are going to help you in the long editing process if eventually you want to take control of your podcast and do everything yourself.
And I would argue that a lot of us, before we started editing for other people, we were listening to our content. We were critiquing ourselves. We were like, oh my God, I said, again. And I'm going to work on that. Like, you made that commitment because you were like, if I can shave an hour off of editing, I'll be thrilled. And that's the exact thing that we are wanting to relieve our clients from, that laborious editing part they don't like, that they obviously aren't doing. So does that mean that maybe the customers will not want editors quite as much because they're not, or the podcasters aren't going to need editors quite as much because they're just throwing it on YouTube? And then if they do have an editor, then are they going to want a video editor, for instance? Like, should we all be learning like DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere? I mean, what is, because those two things, like, audio is not going away, but neither is video. And if a person can, or if a content creator or anybody can just make them all together and like just divide up the, whatever, distribute it, do we need to learn those skills?
I do not offer video services because I'm not good at it. And I'm not going to have somebody pay me for something that I am not good at. Or like, don't waste your money on me. And I don't want to edit videos.
No, I don't either.
I have no desire. And I think knowing who you are and what you want and what services you want to provide, where is your zone of genius? Where do you want to learn to be better? I think those are the services that you should offer. I think that people get very caught up in what is the quickest way to make a buck now, instead of saying, where am I going to take the time and energy to invest in my craft so that I can make my craft better, even if it's not the end thing now, because everything has a season and everything circles back. So all of these people that are abandoning audio editing to do video editing only, what happens when the video party ends? Where are all of those audio people going to be? They're going to switch back? I just have the time nor the energy to want to offer that as a service. And there are people that do, and I'm like, go Queens, I'll refer you to them.
Right? And I'm going to need to start building a list, though.
Like, let me give you my affiliate link.
Yeah.
And enjoy them. But I think that you really have to tap into you and what your zone of genius is and what you want to be in this podcasting world.
Does this, as podcasting and as businesses and other media, like traditional media, starts to really realize the value of not only the audio, but, the long and short form video, they are wanting to come in and do what they do and like put their money in, dominate the space and use it to make oodles and oodles of money for themselves. On the flip side, there will be more kind of corporate network production house jobs opening up. And this kind of leads into the trend I was noticing, which was Hollywood companies wanting to find podcast service providers. I've talked to a couple people from a couple different companies in the past couple of weeks. They're like, oh, we're looking into this company. I'm like, I know that person. And we're looking into that company. I'm like, oh, okay, they're great, kind of thing. And it's these editing companies that do volume, right, at a lower rate. But they're starting to offer more expanded services like the dialogue editing, like the sound design, even, writing, right? Putting together the content, being the ghost producer. So I think that it's maybe Like, I don't know what that's going to be, but what I hear from heads of productions and studio people is that the film and TV people do not want to touch podcasting. Like the way they do editing and production in TV and film from, everything I've been told is that you do it with the like executive producer or the writer, whoever is in charge of the story of that show. You sit down with them and you do the actual editing, right? You decide what to cut. And then when you do the sound design, you sit down with them. You sit down with whoever is in charge of making the, content for the show and making those creative decisions, and you do it together. And what Hollywood is starting to discover is it can work when you are not in the same room. And I think this is going to start to open up more opportunities for people like us that come from the indie space largely, because I don't know how many times. I started teaching dialogue editing because I couldn't refer anybody to do it because I didn't know how to do it. So I think these jobs are going to start to open up more and more. And I think what's going to end up happening in terms of post-production and production in general is I think that the way we have done things is now going to filter out into other industries. And there's going to be a lot of, merging in the future as companies, as, I don't know, businesses figure out that we've been doing it really smartly and really efficiently for a very long time and making money for ourselves. And they could actually do that. And I think that's what the pandemic started to teach him, that this remote work thing, it actually, in a lot of situations, especially creative situations, like I can't be creative in an office. Okay. It's not happening. Right. I need y'all to go away. So anyway, that is what I'm seeing.
But I think that that's where what you call yourself and the title that you hold is really important. And that's what differentiates a producer versus a podcast manager.
Mm-hmm.
You can manage a podcast. That doesn't mean that you're a producer. That doesn't mean that you do script writing. That doesn't mean that you do dialogue content. That doesn't mean that you are helping your client in the creative process of talking about which order their content should be going in.
Yeah. And I just want to throw out one more title, and that is story editor, which is halfway between in regular podcast editor and producer. Right. So you're just helping edit the story in a way that makes sense and getting to do that creative stuff.
And I think that because podcasting isn't something that you can go to college and get a certification or a degree, there is this opportunity to label yourself as something that you're kind of not, because you haven't had that experience yet. So when I first started, I started as a podcast manager and I did show notes for free. That was my first client. That's how I got my first client. I didn't call myself a producer. I started calling myself a producer when I was walking my clients through the creative process of, what are you talking about? When are you talking about this? When I started doing content editing and moving all of those paragraphs around and doing the hokey pokey and making sure that it all fit well. When I started inserting music and special effects, that's when I transitioned myself into calling myself a producer. But I don't think that the industry talks enough about those titles and what all of that, or story editing, all of that entails.
There's language you use for the indie space, right? And then there's language you use for all the other, the business to business and the network and the corporate and the production houses. There's a different set of language. And I think that kind of, I don't want to say professional, because we are all professionals. Corporate, type thing. I think they're starting to get it.
And I think it also should be defined on your skill set, because there is a particular tool that everybody raves about in regards to editing. And I'm not going to name it, but it's not a DAW. And people adore it. And they're like, all you have to do is type in remove filler words, and all of the filler words are removed. Are you listening to the audio? Because it chops off the very next word. There are words that don't even show up on this platform. They're just I don't know where they go. They go into the stratosphere.
Sometimes stuff just
If
disappears.
it can't transcribe them, it's silent.
Yeah.
It's just crickets.
And sometimes it like has gotten out of sync for me. So like
totally.
It just makes things disappear stuff.
So I will periodically do content editing, like moving words and paragraphs around in that tool.
Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I use it for.
And then I abort the mission. I click out of it and I insert that audio into a DAW because I have more control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where I feel like I don't have control in that tool. And I feel like a lot of people, or it has become commonplace now to say, I only work in this tool and I edit in there and I do all of these great things, but the sound quality remains something to be desired.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sandra said it is not ready for prime time. And she's right. And I think it has specific use cases. But again, here they took an audio tool and zoop, video.
I would argue that they took a transcription tool and tried to use it for audio and then pushed it to video.
I think that is the downside of AI.
Yeah.
Because these tools are very easy to use versus mastering a DAW. And because podcasting is is so popular and people need assistance in it, it's something that you can utilize quickly and charge well for it. So that's where I feel like AI is a little bit of a downfall and taking kind of the easy way out for using some of these tools and mechanisms that people are just bragging about.
And that tool isn't cheap. It's just as expensive as like Pro Tools or Audition. Or Audition, right? And it's actually, I pay less for Audition. But I will say, like, first of all, anybody who wants to like help building, like if there's a developer out there wanting to build the next competitor and wants to make a really good tool, come see us, right? We will give you, because we understand that this tool that like people may like, we will still have customers. It'll be okay because nothing is going to be that great, but it'll be, if it can simplify our lives, make our work faster, then I am all for it. If it can do collaboration, all that stuff. So that's what I want AI to do. I just want it to assist me smartly, right? I don't need to have every like, I don't even know their like filler word list is like a mile long. And I'm like, nobody cares that much. Like, okay. But that brings me to something Brian kind of mentioned in places, and that is ChatGPT.
Yeah. So sorry, Steve, you're going to have to probably, I don't want to be responsible. So whether you play the game, that's up to you. And actually, before I start talking about AI and ChatGPT, I'm wondering, for those of you that are watching, like, what are some of the trends that you're seeing also? Because those might be some things. And the reason AI and by extension ChatGPT shows up for me is because I see two sides of this in I'll call it the news, right? There's the one side that says, hey, this is going to make everything so easy. And we've already talked about how that's sort of true and sort of not. And as a note, I have one client where there's very little that I do for his show. It's just, I'm involved in one part and one part only. And one of the things I noticed is that this particular client has started now taking a summary of the show and just running it through ChatGPT to get his show notes and his description and all that stuff. And there was one that I got yesterday that it was like, I'm thinking, did you even read this? Like sentence 1 and sentence 3 are the same sentence with different words. And this absolutely does not capture the tone of the episode. I think tools like Capshow and Cast Magic and some of those are trying really hard to capture the tone of the show, to capture the tone of the episode. Whether or not they nail it is maybe 50-50, right? But they're trying to do that. And I would say that there's the same kind of thing going on the audio side. We talked about one tool where there's some editing stuff, but there are other tools trying to essentially replace quality tools like Isotope RX or Acon Digital or Cedarwood or Cedar something or other these tools that are built to reduce reverb, fix background noise, all of those kinds of things. And what they're doing is they're basically recreating it. And sometimes it works. And sometimes it's a train wreck. It's just you don't know what you're going to get. And the reality of these tools are that while they're probably free now, some of them are, they're probably not going to be free forever because servers aren't free and bandwidth isn't free. And unfortunately, free doesn't pay the bills. So like, I just kind of throw that out there. But on the flip side, I'm thinking about like the person who's going, is AI going to take my job? And I'll go back to a Gary Vaynerchuk quote that I heard in an interview a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago. And it's a bit fear-based, so I'm not super happy about it. But this was the quote: AI is not going to replace your job. A human using AI is going to take your job. Now, that may or may not be true, right? He likes to speak in absolutes. Probably half of his predictions don't come true, whatever. It doesn't matter. But my thinking is, how can I use AI tools to help speed up my workflow? I think, Bethany, you talked about that. So there are a few plugins that I use that have an AI component, one for EQ, one for compression, one for some other stuff. And so I use those. I'm trying to get good with those.
You're going to have to link those somewhere so I can look at them later and maybe buy them.
Yeah, it's Sonable. It's not inexpensive, but I like their EQ. I like their compressor. Okay. And I like their limiter. I don't use them on everything. Sometimes they're not the right tool for the job. And that's the thing. If you take your car to a mechanic's shop and he only has one wrench, he's not fixing your car. Right? Unless you need a 10 millimeter nut replaced. If that's the only thing he's got, he can't fix your job. So as professionals, we need to have different tools. We need to know what our tools can do well. Sometimes it's an AI tool that's maybe good at diagnostic and recommending something, which is what I use the EQ for. Because sometimes it can find those resonances way faster than I could and fix them, right? So I would point that out. But then also, just keep in mind, you need to be good with the tool. If you're watching this and you read the description of the event, that was literally me writing like 5 prompts in a row to ChatGPT describing what this episode was going to be about, and then say, give me a description. Okay, well, can you make it better? Can you put it in an AIDA format? Like doing all of that kind of stuff. And when I got done, it was still a garbled mess.
Okay, I have to like share something about that. Okay, and this was like just very quick reactions to the post you made. Okay, for this live stream, and I saw it was like 5 paragraphs. I was like,
Brian didn't write this.
I was like, okay, and I skimmed to the bottom, and I was like, is this the live stream? And then I saw it was ChatGPT, and I was like, wow, that's terrible. So I'm so sorry. I didn't actually read the description to this.
That's okay. I didn't either. I got like halfway through. I'm like, this is dumb. We might as well just make this an object lesson.
Yeah, and that's why I rewrote. Or I wrote my own thing, because usually I just copy what Brian says.
The thing with Chat GPT is I find my clientele, part of the package of retaining us is we do their copy. We write their podcast description. We write their show notes. I can capture their voice because I have very different clients. So I need to capture how they would share information in a very different way for each client that I'm working on their podcast. Chat GPT, I find, can't get the voice because it's a very distinctive, individualized thing. And I absolutely agree that AI is getting better faster, but I don't think that it will get to the point where it is able to pick up the nuances of that particular host. And that is what the listeners gravitate to. That is why the listeners are showing up. The copy is attracting the listener, but the host or story is what's keeping the listener engaged. So I guess it's great to use AI and ChatGPT or the other, Happy Scribe or Temi or Cast Magic or Cast, because there's so many now, or Capshow, to kind of give you a baseline, but you have to put in the work and making it sound either like yourself or the particular client that's paying you.
I would agree. And I think the other thing is to build on what Jesse said, I'm fine with AI tools. I want to use them to help with the process. But I mean, I spent an hour yesterday rewriting a description that came from an AI tool, right? I used the tool for what it's good at, transcribing a lot of audio, summarizing it, and then giving me some ideas. And then I said, yeah, but no, not really. We're not going to find a way to use the guest's name in every single paragraph, right?
But it's doing that for SEO, right? Isn't that what it's?
It might be, but I'm not going to do that because in the end, I want people to find it. People that are looking for things, because eventually the keyword stuffing gets caught. Google tweaks the algorithm. And unfortunately, they have a lot more engineers that make a lot more money. And a single AI tool will never outsmart their ability to use their AI tools to go, yeah, no.
Yeah. Though Adriana makes a good point and also a scary science fiction point. AI is learning from us, testing every day too fast. I imagine that in 1 year, everything will be much more accurate. And I think she's probably right. I think especially as more people adopt the AI learns from more people and that growth becomes exponential until there are robot overlords.
Can I just say something about that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring a little blackness into it because it is picking up from people who are blogging. It is picking up from people who are writing content. The majority of the people that are blogging and writing content are cis white individuals. It's really hard as a Black woman whose majority of clients are Black women to utilize AI and have it sound like I sound or have it sound like my clients, because there isn't enough information out there for many different reasons. Gatekeeping, not allowing our voices to be heard, to extract how we would sound and utilize that in such a way that's going to benefit us. So I think that it's really problematic if it's bringing things in from only one type of demographic.
Well, this point was made to Apple with their facial recognition.
I didn't know that.
Guess what they forgot to consider?
I'm a droider all day.
Okay. That people aren't all white. And so, like, people with darker skin, they couldn't unlock their phones with face recognition because the camera didn't read them as people. And this oversight, which is probably the wrong freaking word, but it's late, has existed in film forever and still exists to this day. When I see watching movies and TVs and there's a very dark person in like the shadows where, for a white person, for a lighter skinned person, they're visible at like clearly. And so that is absolute technological thing. And if anybody is interested, Technically Human is a podcast that deals with ethics in technology. Yes, and it's put out. I work for them. So full disclosure, but it's so interesting.
I think it's an important aspect that people who aren't underrepresented, they don't have to be aware of it. It doesn't have to be something that they think of regularly because they're not impacted.
Right.
But I feel like people who are underrepresented voices, and that's why I love podcasting, because I want to get so many underrepresented voices on this platform because Brian said earlier, there isn't a lot of gatekeeping. We have an opportunity now to share our experiences, to share our stories, to share how we walk through the world. And if AI is moving at warp speed, but they're not combining our stories or our experiences in the information that they're pulling, they're taking our options away. So that's another I have for AI. There's a lot of us, but there's also those.
But I think there's a huge opportunity for us to connect with the developers of these technologies because they start out in the indie space too. And they rely on people like us, service providers, to help them not only create a product, that we will love, but a product we will recommend to other people. And through that, I mean, how many, we've all seen it. I mean, those of us who have been doing this for more than a few years have all seen the companies that come in, they give us our dream product, and then change it to a like consumer, like, mass market product, and take all those things that we love away. And I just like for somebody not to do that, or people to stop doing that. But it happens all the time, right?
To that point, I think there is something else to be aware of when you think about whether or not you want to use AI. And we've already touched on it, but to make it really overt, AI tools don't create anything. They are not creative. They are never smarter than the material they've been trained on. So if they're trained on material that was created by a particular segment of highly skilled people, they'll be very good at that thing. If the training is by every single person that uses a software and 95% of them don't know what they're doing, it's only going to get better at doing the wrong thing more quickly. So when you choose your tools, be careful about how they're trained, right? And then use them well. And for the benefit of the rest of us, get better at your craft with them so that we can all get better with you too and benefit from you. But like, be aware, it's not going to create something. It might synthesize something, but it's only as smart as the stuff that it's been trained on, and it will never create something totally unique, right? So if that's what you want, it's okay to have an AI tool involved, but just remember, it's the human, that creative act within us as the editor, or them as the host, or the writer that we have involved, or the graphic designer, or whatever. It's that choiceful use of all of those elements that creates the absolutely new thing that is that voice that represents you.
I could like keep talking about this. I think this is a fun topic. I think we need to do this again.
In about 3 years, see if we still have jobs.
Yeah.
When we're all living together because we're all homeless.
Actually, I think that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I think we need to do a part 2. I think we need to get like Daniel and Jennifer's voice in this. I would love to hear, I mean, I love you, Bethany, but I'd love to hear from like maybe some other people. No, I think this is like, there are a lot of really smart people that we know. We're very fortunate. And I think it would be great to have on other, amazing, insightful people who really are, because one of the reasons I did have Bethany on is because her business is so awesome. Like, I love the way Bethany does business, and I've got to watch her grow and expand and test things and try things. And so that, and I ask her questions about podcasting in like insight, and she always gives me such really insightful answers. So I would like to bring on some more like thought leaders like Bethany in our industry, because I think that maybe some of us should start calling ourselves like, I think podcast editing, I think us as an industry, and I'll stop here. I think we need to start like taking agency over the narrative of podcast editing. We shouldn't rely on the other trades. I know, there are newsletters and things, but I think we need to start coming together a little bit more to have these conversations.
Carrie, I would be really interested. One of my friends, Akila, she actually created an SEO tools. It's called SEO Assist. And shameless plug for her just because I love her. But I think it would be interesting to have developers of tools on.
Yes.
like people like her and like other people who are creating these tools.
Yeah, we'll take that idea and run with it. And then we'll have just some more thought leaders on. And I like to get some like really diverse group. Anyway, I'm planning the show while we're, so thank you.
Carrie's the new producer.
Sorry. Pod next question. Do we want to do a pod next question?
Yeah. Do we have time?
Yeah, we've got 6 minutes.
Bethany, I need you to pick a number from 1 to 5.
4.
Oh, come on. You picked such an easy one.
It's a softball. Give me a softball. It's late.
Yeah.
This is the John Lee Dubas question of the day, apparently. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
It's so cliche, but trust your intuition and that visceral feeling. It's so cliche, but it's so true.
The best piece of advice I ever received was don't eat the yellow snow.
I knew it. It is going
It could be lemon. It could be a lemon slushy. You don't know.
You try it and let me know.
Is
Never
it
be
worth
the first.
finding out? So, because this kind of relates to my best piece of advice that I have ever gotten. It's you get to decide. So you get to decide, Yellowstone, are you willing to take the risk? I'm not. But, if you are, that's cool.
I live in Tennessee. Ain't no way. There's no way I'm touching the Yellowstone.
Now I want to go funny. Okay. The best piece of advice that I saw was, I know that Ellen DeGeneres was canceled, but I love this quote. And she said, be yourself unless you're a serial killer. I think I have it on my Facebook as like the quote.
All right. What do we do at this point?
I think we let people know what they can do if they want to be a guest on the show and join this bit of craziness, which would be go to podcasteditorsmastermind.com/be a guest. That will redirect you to a little form that you can fill out. And then we've actually got it figured out to where we actually get notifications if you're interested in being on the show, or if you have a question for us, if there's a topic you want us to cover. So like part 2 of AI and ChatGPT or something like that, you can do all that there. Podcasteditorsmastermind.com/be a guest. At some point, we probably need to give our names and let people know who wasn't able to join us.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even introduce us.
Well, I mean, those that are joining us live know where they can read, so it's there.
It's horrible. We'll just throw it in later.
If you caught a replay, we're sorry in advance.
Yeah. I'll just intro us in later. But I do want to say just one more thing. You should subscribe to our newsletter to encourage me to purchase an upgraded subscription, because we're only a few away from hitting our cap.
Oh,
but
no.
I'm never going to do it unless I absolutely have to. So it's something like that.
Yeah. So if you've got extra email accounts, just make Carrie push us over to something that's not the free service that we've been using.
It's not free. It's not free. That's the horrible thing. It's not free. We got to upgrade.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. We need to get onto something free.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason Carrie should have to cover that cost and then the rest of us think that it's free.
No. Oh, I don't really. Because I want to be able to do the gifts and the...
All right. This is where therapy starts and we end the episode, right, Carrie?
Yes. It's been a long day. Thank you, Bethany Hawkins of Crackers and Soup, for joining us. You can find her at
crackersandsoup.com.
I'm Brian Ensminger. I've been here all night so far. You can find me at toptieraudio.com and mostly on Facebook because I'm old and all that stuff. Do you want me to do Who Wasn't Here?
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, so unable to join us was Jennifer Longworth of Bourbon Barrel Podcasting at bourbonbarrelpodcasting.com and on all of the socials. And Daniel Abendroth at rothmedia.audio was also unable to join us tonight. And you can find him on almost none of the socials. And above me on this side is
Carrie Caulfield Eric. You can find me at carrie.land and also hiding in my room, just editing away. Oh my gosh. Do all the things, subscribe and stuff, and we'll see you, later.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you, Bethany. Bye. I think I reached my limit.
So how much is that?
No.